Welcome to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. If the name sounds like a business show to you, then you've got it all wrong. Kelly McMillan is the principal of McMillan Fiberglass Stocks and will talk about shooting for fun, competition, hunting, and self-defense. Now, here is your host, Kelly McMillan.
I wish it was Kelly who was here today, but he actually isn't. He's away on business. So I will be welcoming you to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. I'm Zev Nadler, best known as Kelly's sidekick on the show and power nostril cam user. But I also serve as his producer and engineer of the show, as well as being the manager of the LRHQ.com site, your one-stop shop for champion vetted gear. Joining us is Cooper Balestrino, who is our social media guru. Say hello.
Hi, guys.
Okay, so while Kelly is away, he did pre-record two amazing segments that we know you're going to enjoy. The first segment is with Rob Furlong, and in case you don't know who that is, he was responsible for the first ELR sniper shot that was heard around the world in 2002 when he established the record for the longest confirmed sniper kill in combat at 2,430 meters. You'll hear that story and more in just a few minutes. This segment will run about 40 minutes, and then we'll take a short break and return with Bob Beck in a pre-record, who joins Kelly in an informative and always fun discourse between those two. You'll enjoy it. They're going to talk about hunting, the industry in general, and Kelly demos a few new stocks in front of the green screen. One other thing, today's show for our Voice America listeners is going to go over our 1 hour slot. So if you wish to review the video component afterwards, after listening on Voice America, you're welcome to come back to our Facebook Live that is happening as we speak anytime you'd like. And of course, that will be on our Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan Facebook page. It'll also be shared on Kelly's personal page and on the ELR HQ website. So at this time, Cooper is going to spin up our first pre-record by sharing her screen, and we hope you enjoy it.
I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. I'm your host, and for the next hour, we're going to talk about anything related to firearms, long-range shooting, hunting. I've got two really great guests on today, and I'm really excited to get to the first one, Rob Furlong. He's already on your screen. If you don't recognize that name, it might be because you've been in a cave somewhere for about the last 18 years. But just a little background. Rob was Canadian Special Forces, shot a .50 caliber rifle, and was responsible for the longest confirmed kill in combat of 2,430 meters. And that was in 2002. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
Okay, yep. So now I've introduced you. Why don't you give our listeners and our viewers a little bit more about who you are, how you got into the military, and how you got behind a .50 cal.
Okay, so right at the beginning in the introduction there, my unit is 3 PPCLI. So not so much an SF unit at a Canada, but a highly trained light infantry unit. And I was part of the reconnaissance there, so just want to clarify that. But okay. Getting into the Army, I mean, I started off at 21 years old, a young kid, kind of interested in the outdoors, just like every other guy who probably joins the combat arms or the infantry, and kind of looking for a new life challenge, and kind of walked into the office one day and said, hey, you guys hiring? Which they were. Fill out some paperwork, and found myself months later in basic training. And I wasn't your typical kid that was interested in military his whole entire life. It literally was, I just wanted to change. I was living on the east coast of Canada. The economy wasn't doing too well out there, and just wanting a change. And man, did I ever get it too. It was a great experience.
Almost immediately after joining, there was 9/11, and then the whole thing in the Middle East. So you basically went to work right away.
Yeah, I got in 97. I did a tour in Bosnia in 99, early 2000. I did a lot of competition shooting in between there as part of the Canadian Armed Forces. And then, you're right, 2002 or 2001 happened. that changed everything. And I mean, it really did change our military here in Canada, I know, as well as in the U.S. We deployed February 2002, and we spent the next decade in Afghanistan as a country, fighting alongside the U.S. in Afghanistan. It kind of led into being deployed in the other conflict areas, such as Iraq now against ISIS, where, that's slowing down a little bit. We still have our guys on the ground and stuff there. So it really propelled our military into the next fighting century, we'll say.
Well, you and I have spent some time together before. I met you not long after this happened. We talked a little bit. And then when you got out of the service, you actually came to the SHOT Show and spent some time in our booth. And we've really appreciated you being so open to us. I think my brother was running the company at the time that the Canadians reached out to him to provide the 50 cals that the Canadians use. Still using them today, though they've been reworked, and I don't think they're using the McMillan fiberglass stock on them anymore. I think they've gone to a Cadex chassis, and they've rebarreled them. The one thing that I know about the Canadians is that they are the best long-range snipers in the business, and I don't think anybody, even our guys, will argue that, because your government is pretty smart in the way that they train, and you guys shoot more 50 cals than anybody did. I mean, you get more time behind the gun on a 50 cal, and your 50 cal shooters shoot nothing but 50 cals, if I understand the system.
Yeah, a lot said there, Kelly, and there's a lot to be proud of on both sides of the border. I mean, yourself, your brother, designing that weapon system, at the time, that was light years ahead of anything else that was on the market. And we took that system and implemented it into a training program that was at the tip of the spear, I'll say, in sniper training around the world. And the success that we had with that in Afghanistan really brought to the forefront the capabilities of Canadian snipers. And we've seen, since the success in 2002, the Canadian sniper program explode, with not only the numbers increasing, but the financial side from the government. The Canadian government, I think, has really seen our success as soldiers, as a feather in their hat, we'll say, and have been willing, I think, to spend a little bit more money. And our leadership within the sniper cell in Canada have taken that, and lessons learned, working with other countries, seeing what's wrong. And because we're such a small army in comparison to the United States, we can turn real quick, we'll say. And we've seen how important to have a 50 caliber sniper rifle in our arsenal compared to some other countries who even start moving away from that. We've kind of really perfected that system, and it's been hard to really look at anything else because of the success we've had and the success that we continue to have with just recently, as you know. I mean, you're correct. The McMillan was tweaked. They did take a McMillan action, put it into the Cadex chassis, and kind of just give it a new age overhaul, we'll say. But it's still proving to be extremely accurate at extremely long ranges. And I think having a 50 cal in the arsenal is imperative. The anti-personnel success that we've had over the years is well known, but the anti-material role at a 50 is second to none. And we have used that for anti-material roles. And in my mind, there's nothing really else on the market that can give you that ability as a sniper.
Before we go on about the 50 cal, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about what you've been doing since you got out of the military, what your role is today, and how you've stayed kind of in touch for the last few years.
So I got out of the military in 2004. I joined Edmonton Police Service. Enjoyed my time there. I was there till 2012. I started up Rob Furlong's Marksmanship Academy. And since then, it's been an honest roller coaster for me. we were probably the first of our kind starting up in Canada, and it was really modeled after some of the successes of the schools I've seen in the U.S. A lot of the friendships that I made with other snipers who had, schools in the U.S., including the McMillan Sniper School, in talking to those guys and seeing what worked and what didn't, kind of using those guys as business mentors, really helped me kind of propel the school forward, and it's exploded now. We're training law enforcement, militaries. We got a lot of foreign militaries visiting us, and now we're doing a lot of traveling internationally. So we've been really able to capture the interest of the sniper communities for what we're offering in terms of sniping. And I think our success has been to keep up with technology and education that is really at the forefront of extreme long range shooting, but we've never ever eroded the fundamentals when it comes to sniper training, because you cannot have one without the other. You can be a sniper with no technology, which means that you're short range engagements, or you can be an ELR shooter working on high end technology, but you're not a sniper. And I'm sure, Kelly, you've been told this many times with the communities in which you walk in. There's a big difference between long range shooting and sniping. So sniping is, it's a whole lot of different skill sets, including fieldcraft, surveillance, and so forth. And the shooting is really a small percentage of what we do, but it is a very, very important aspect because it's become a science rather than a skill set, we'll say, to which they kind of both intertwine anyway. But to answer your question, what we've been doing is really just trying to stay on top with how quickly this trade is advancing right now in the world.
Well, to talk about that a little bit, one of the things that ELR shooting in the organizations that I've been a part of, they want to believe that they can share information that'll be valuable to snipers around, in our allies and around the world, in being able to do what the Canadian sniper recently did by using the latest technology, the latest ballistics, and being able to accomplish something that before just recently would have been considered absolutely impossible. And that is, hitting a target at 2.2 miles. And they did that by combining a bunch of different things that basically weren't even available until 4 or 5 years ago and started come to the forefront. One of the things that technology and the information does is allow you to get into positions where you can use that and eliminate having to use some of those other skills that you were talking about having. Not saying that you don't need them, but in a situation where you're 2.2 miles away from a target, some of the things that make snipers really good at what they do is concealment and being able to stay on target for a long period of time and all this stuff. That's not always that necessary the farther away you get. So it kind of negates a part of it that becomes a critical part of it in closer distances. So I think that's a good thing. It doesn't preclude the shooters from having to know that stuff and be good at it. But at 2.2 miles, being concealed amounts to something different than it does at 600 or 800 yards.
100%. And, it's equivalent this to, when you're starting off as a sniper, it's like guys who learn to race. You don't really get into a Formula One car day one and just go around the racetrack. You start off in go-karts. And as a sniper, you have to learn the basic fundamentals. Same thing as when you're getting into go-kart, teaching you acceleration, turning, and braking. And as a sniper, if you don't have the basic fundamentals, to be successful at extreme long ranges is going to be very difficult. What you're insinuating about the skill sets not playing such a role, such as cam concealment, stalking, you're 100% right. When I was in Afghanistan with my team, we didn't wear ghillies. I mean, we're over 2,000 meters away from our target, anywhere between 1,500 meters to over 2,000. We can just use a lay to ground rather than having to use ghillies to conceal ourselves. And having that ability to do that because of the technology we're using made us deadly on the battlefield. And now you take with what's happening with the extreme long-range community now in the U.S. and other parts of the world, it's snipers are absolutely terrifying on the battlefield. And those guys passing on that lessons learned, it's making snipers invaluable. And without those guys doing that and sharing that technology and that information, we would still be doing the basic stuff we were doing 10 years ago. I mean, militaries are not known for developing new technology. I mean, they seek technology from the manufacturers, from entrepreneurs, people who are wanting to push the envelope. When you hear the word, that's impossible. Well, that's tantalizing to most of us in this interest in this industry, because we want to make the impossible possible. And when we first had our engagement in 2002, there was a lot of naysayers, to which there's always going to be those people. And even recently with success of a unit here in Canada, there's a lot of naysayers. But we've seen this in person, and I know you have too, that these engagements are possible using new technology, new equipment, and having experienced shooters behind the gun. It is possible.
If you don't mind, I'd love to ask you to share that experience of that shot. I want my listeners to hear it from you so that they know the real story, how it played out. If you wouldn't mind, just take a few minutes and kind of relive that scenario for us so that everybody out there knows from Rob Furlong exactly, how that shot went down. So
when we got flown into the Shikoh Valley, our primary objective was obviously Overwatch. We were the only 50 cal sniper teams in theater, especially with the Leica Vector 21s that we were using and so forth. Some of the specialized kit that we had made us far more effective than anything else that was available to the commanders on the ground. There was 6 of us that deployed, 2 50 cal teams, 2 3-man teams. We were broken up into different locations to provide interlocking arcs for the Overwatch positions to the guys on the ground. We deployed with about 110 rounds of ammunition, which for us at the time, I've never gone into combat with a 50 cal system. I mean, thinking, okay, if I go through 110 rounds, it's been a good deployment. Not knowing what laid ahead. Nobody knew what was going to lay ahead in Operation Anaconda. Anything you read about it, it was very underestimated, we'll say. And not to do it in any fault in anybody on the ground or the recon units that were out there. They just didn't see them. They were in that cave complex, which was labeled Ginger, Objective Ginger. And, we set up and we had probably 70, 80 guys directly below us, but a couple of hundred more a little further down the valley. We're covering their movement. And the very first day that we moved in, we used the Tac-50 to disable a Toyota pickup. That was our first engagement. That was at about 800 meters. When that happened, we later learned that over the radios of the Al-Qaeda guys, there was chatter. There was chatter about this gun that had taken out the pickup. We had used a Ralphus round to do that. So, of course, you know what that does. It was very successful. It gives a little bit of a show with the impact. We became a target, unbeknown to us. Once we had moved in a location, took our Overwatch position, we were just going to wait till last light and have like a last-minute stand to, and then everybody get into like a night routine. Well, just before last light, we started taking mortars and machine gun fire, Dishka fire. And our next engagement, once we identified the enemy machine gun position, was 1,500 meters, and my partner Tim took that shot with the TAC-50 and was successful engage and eliminated that target at 1,500 meters. That was then, from that point on, that was the closest target we'd engage for the rest of Operation Anaconda.
How many days was the operation?
I think we were out there, and I can tell you right now because it's written on. We're out there for about 8 days.
Awesome.
Of the actual true combat, because we went in a day before and had to turn back due to heavy fire and the Chinooks, but we actually spent 8 days on the ground in that position. For the shot that we made, it was about 3 or 4 days into the actual combat that we made that shot. And it wasn't a shot where, we just winged some rounds out there hoping to hit something. When we started engaging targets after day one, they quickly learned that we had snipers with some extreme range capabilities and really put some fear into those guys, to the point, Kelly, where they would be in the waddies and they'd be crawling on their hands and face, not knowing that we could still see them because of the altitude that we were at in our position. Which made them just an easier target. So it really shut down their supply lines that we were using. So the shot that we made at 2,530 meters, we had 3 shots at that target to be successful. But previous to that, and this is what led up to that shot, we had been trying to engage targets at those ranges for the last couple of days and had collected our elevation data. So we were really only having to deal with the winds and the mirage. Our hit ratio out there wasn't high at all. I mean, everything that we were shooting at took 3 to 4 rounds if we were successful at it at all. Anything inside of that 2,000 meter mark, the rifle was absolutely deadly. But when we started pushing out past 2,000 meters, we were collecting data. At the same time, we were engaging targets. We'd miss, and Tim was my spotter. He'd give me correction, and we basically walked on the targets. Kind of a little bit crude way of doing it compared to the technology we have now, but you got to look back. We had a 50 cal sniper rifle. We had a Leupold Mark IV fixed 16 power, but at the time it had 120 MOA of adjustment, which there really wasn't anything else out there with that much of an adjustment because due to being fixed power. We had the Leupold 12 to 40 spotters, and we had a 60 power spotter we brought with us too, and I can't remember the brand name that we had with us, but it was a 60 power. Tim, who was my spotter, would identify the targets as we were glassing. I'd sometimes be behind a set of binos. When we'd identify targets, we get the vector, the laser rangefinder. We were able to get an actual range to those guys. Most of the time, we would wait for those guys to stop because of those distance trying to hit a moving target was extremely difficult. If you shot at them, they would usually stop or seek cover, which made the engagement a much more easy engagement as we were for the long-range shot that we made. But we were making those type of shots the days prior, just not at that distance. So it was all a collection of data as we were going.
One of the things that we've noticed in my experience twice at King of 2 Mile is that 2,000 yard, 2,000 meter distance is really where the line is drawn, because you'll see guys at that 1,700 and the 1,900 yard targets. 2 out of 3 shots, not uncommon during the competition, but man, once you go past that and you hit those 2,000 plus targets, yeah, 1 shot on the target out of 3 was, and that's where everybody fell off. A lot of guys, they'd get to that 1,900 yard target and make 1 hit and never hit another target after that. So yeah, that 2,000 meters, I think that we've come to the conclusion that that's really where stuff starts to change. So go ahead with your story.
Yeah, no. So, and we actually had ran out of ammunition because there's a belief that there was a Canadian and American ammo. Well, the ammunition we deployed with was issued by the Canadian government, but it was actually American ammo too. So nobody in Canada, other than General Dynamics, who makes some ammunition for the military, makes 50 cal ammo. We don't have bullet manufacturers here. So everything we deployed with was American ammo, naturally. But what happened when we ran out of our 110 rounds, which happened fairly quickly because of, we weren't successful having single round engagements. We had requested a resupply, and we could not get a resupply from our home unit. A lot of the choppers and stuff that were being flown in were being either shot at. And we'd already had 2 Chinook shot down. One of the ones was the Battle of Roberts Ridge, and the second one was a QRF team that were coming in. So they didn't want to risk any more aircraft moving into those altitudes and getting shot down. So there was an airdrop done. And we were fortunate enough to get resupplied with some 50 cal ammunition. When we got the ammunition, they brought it to us. It wasn't the same stuff that we deployed with. So now here you are, you're at these type of ranges, and our dope is completely different. So what do? We just start shooting at ranges and getting our dope. It was the most crude way of doing things. The rule about shooting no more than 2 shots from position went right out the window. We agreed that we had such cover and such distance between the targets that we would have been safe shooting multiple rounds. At times we would get engaged. We moved around. We were very successful in tracking down mortar teams and machine gun nests that were set up on the mountains. One mortar position had 10th Mountain pinned down pretty hard. They were taking some casualties there, and we are very, very successful in eliminating those guys. One of the other things that we were very successful doing there was using fast air as an asset. Because of the equipment that we had, our GPS system, which was able to communicate with our laser rangefinder, the Vector 21, we were able to call in very, very precise indirect fire and direct fire, using everything from the Apaches and Cobras to F-16s to B-52s to Spectre. We called in a ton of air support, which, as you can imagine, was very successful in taking out mortar positions and so forth.
Yeah, it sounds like you did a whole lot more than you guys got credit for, and probably the least of which was, your shooting.
Yeah, exactly. You know what, the shooting what we did there, I mean, Kelly, it grabbed the attention just because maybe it hadn't been recorded in history or something before. I mean, we really at the time didn't even know what we did ourselves, but we did a lot more other than shooting. Shooting, again, was a very small percentage of what we were doing in country there, but it was a life experience. I mean, to have participated as a Canadian in a massive U.S. special operations thing like Anaconda, I mean, it's once in a lifetime. Not very many guys get to do that.
So the shot, it was the third shot. Can you talk about the 2 leading up to that and finish this story?
Yeah, you bet. So the first shot, just like every other engagement we're doing at those distance, was almost a sighting round. We would use that and try to get a correction onto target. We had our elevation pretty much figured out for those ranges, like I said, because we'd engaged so many targets and have shot so many rounds. We knew what our elevation corrections were. It was the wind, because we were really struggling with the wind. The second round on target, Tim looks at me and goes, "I think he hit his bag," because he had a big backpack on. And as soon as we took that second shot, I mean, it's really hard for me to see what's going on the ground after taking a shot with a fixed 16 power. But they went for cover. But when they went for cover, they were facing away from us, so their backs are to us behind cover. But I have full exposure of the guys, can take all my time, and we sent another round down range, and we were successful in eliminating that threat. And, making notes in our book as we're going, we had no idea what we had just done. No idea at all. And I remember coming back and doing our debrief, and then we have our data book with all of our engagements and our notes and stuff as snipers do when you're operating. Somebody said, like, these are records, what you're doing here. And we're like, well, maybe. I mean, we don't know, and we didn't. And then sure enough, word started to get out. Some of the Americans had come up and asked us some questions, and next thing you know, we're given a full debrief to the command element, and people are asking a few more questions, and it just kind of went from there. And it was surreal. But for us, that was early in the theater. That was March. We were there till September, so we were just busy the whole time. Really didn't have a whole lot to think about it. Media were starting to come in the country and requesting interviews and wanting to talk to us. And of course, we really didn't want to talk to media at the time because you're operating in country. And we actually at one point got ordered to talk to a reporter, and we were able to use aliases and cover our faces and so forth, so to protect ourselves. But there was a lot of interest created by that. And I feel that what we did in 2002 was kind of the ignition, we'll say, to what has happened over the last 15, 18 years when it comes to extreme long-range shooting, especially in the sniping community. I think people, see that this is possible, and what a tool that will be on the battlefield if we can have guys engaging targets at 2,000 meters, to which now, we're way past that. But I feel that, our success there really kind of propelled the sniping community into the next century, and made a lot of companies, like yours, companies like TACCOM, who, and I use those guys because I think that piece of kit is something completely new. Yeah, like every now and then, every 5-10 years is a piece of equipment that comes along, and that was the 50, back in 2002. That was a piece of equipment that nobody had, and it was a game changer. And you look at the TACCOM and the TACCOM Charlie and say, this is another piece of equipment that's come along, and it's a game changer. It'll be forever remembered. It'll probably be replicated and ripped off and how everything else is, but it will always be remembered as probably what propelled us into the next level, we'll say.
I agree with you 100%. I think that shot and the notoriety that it got was 100% responsible for the entire military mindset of saying, hey, there are things that we can do with this weapon that we never even dreamed of before. So we need to start exploring what our shooters are capable of and what the gun is capable of. Now, we're getting a little short on time, and I want to talk to you about something else. And I'm glad that you're still in the business and training, because you get to see and you get feedback from people, and so that you've got some honest information for me. I know that you've seen our Hellraiser, our semi-automatic 50 cal that we've been working on, it seems like forever. Yeah. Well, last year I decided before I retire, I'm going to finish that project. And I found a firearms engineer, a design engineer, who would work with me. And so what he's doing right now is he's going through the drawings and trying to redesign the gun so that we can take as many pieces out of it, make it as uncomplicated as we can, and to be able to manufacture it and for it to be as durable as possible. But we know, because we've shot this gun, and because of the way that it's built, with the barrel screwed directly into the breech, it's fixed, unlike a floating barrel gas gun as usual. The barrel's not moving. And we have a patented floating gas block that is not fixed to the barrel, so that when the barrel heats up and things start to change, it doesn't affect the way the gun shoots, and it doesn't affect the bullet impact. So we're really confident that we can honestly claim sub-MOA accuracy out of a semi-automatic. Now, you talked about anti-material, and there's still a lot of that needs to be done, no matter what kind of war you're fighting. A lot of it is getting the other guys to stop. And when you're talking about vehicles and a chain of trucks, to get that first one stopped so it blocks the traffic, and then you have a situation where you can control it, that's always going to be needed. So what we found is the semi-automatic 50 is an anti-material shooting, rounds down range, and then a bolt gun as the anti-personnel rifle. But now you've got two 25-pound, 35-pound guns and twice as much ammo because you got to have one. So we're thinking that as good as the 50 still is, if we can provide an anti-material and an anti-personnel weapon in the same weapon, we think that we can scale this gun down to 20 pounds without the optics, so under 25 with the optics. Now, I wanted to ask you, I know that now every 50 cal that the Canadians use have a suppressor. Were they suppressed when you had them?
No.
Okay, so that was a change that came about after the first couple of deployments. I know when I was in Gagetown, they told us they've got these big old suppressors that are about 18 inches long and almost 6 inches in diameter, and really makes a difference on how the gun performs. But concealment's part of the thing. A normal 50 cal bolt gun with just a muzzle brake puts a lot of dust and smoke and flash in the air, and with the suppressor, you can stay concealed a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, suppressor is just another tool in the bag. It really is. And me personally, I'd rather fire the 50 unsuppressed. I'm better able to manage recoil that way. It isn't as we'll say brutal on the body.
Some people think that the suppressor is also a muzzle brake, and it might be to a small degree better than shooting it with a 50 cal without a muzzle brake, but it is nowhere near as comfortable shooting it with a suppressor as it is with a muzzle brake. Now, my intention is to have the muzzle brake, the suppressor designed with an integral muzzle brake. So gas guns don't kick as hard as bolt guns do because of the action, but we think that we can really get this gun into a manageable recoil situation and it be integrally suppressed, so that it's got a suppressor on it all the time. There's no need to take it off or go without it. And we think that this is going to be something that, with the right ammo, sub-MOA, if they're shooting Rafus or AP at cars or vehicles, it doesn't matter. So that's not the critical part of the accuracy. The critical part of the accuracy is, as you know, without the right ammo, those bolt guns that you were shooting wouldn't shoot MOA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what our thinking is. But I'm glad that you agree with me that there's still a place out there in the field for 50 cals, because there's been a lot of talk about doing away with them and going to 338 Lapua, maybe developing a 375 Chi-Tac. One thing that I do know is with the smaller bullets, there's just some things you can't do that they've already done with the 50 cal. So it's already available to them. No redesigning the projectiles and trying to put all this stuff in a bullet that's, a 338 that's so small that it wouldn't be of much value to put any type of tungsten in it to be a penetrator. It just wouldn't be big enough to make it worthwhile. So I think we're still on the right track.
100%. And Kelly, I hope you because you guys kind of were at the forefront. Don't lose sight of the 50. This kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about, and I'm starting to see erosion of fundamentals in the sniper community, due to technology and stuff. And everybody right now is very focused on shooting at 4 kilometers, 4,000 meters with these, unique exotic rounds, which are great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we've really pushed the limits of extreme long range shooting. I look at that as a civilian, a competition percentage of the population. We need to pull back as a military and look at what do we want to do. Me as a sniper, I'm not going to take a shot at 4 kilometers on a guy because he's not a threat at 4 kilometers away, 4,000 meters. If it's a VIP and I need to take that guy out and I want to do that and guarantee a first round kill, I'm not going to take it at 4,000 meters either. I'm going to get a hell of a lot closer and guarantee that I put rounds on target. Is there a place for shooting 4,000 meters? Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's a nice asset to have. The 50 has a place in the military as what it was originally purchased and designed for. It was an anti-material. Until somebody has faced a threat of an up-armored vehicle or a soft-skinned vehicle with a machine gun on it, they'll never understand the importance of having heavy capabilities on the ground in small teams. If you think that you're going to take down a Toyota pickup with a Dishka matched or mounted on it, and that thing is moving at 70, 80 kilometers an hour across land, 1,500 meters away, and all you're shooting at it is with a 338, good for you. I mean, I would much rather have a 50 to stop that thing, because as a sniper, what we want to do is we want to demobilize the vehicle, get those guys to where now it's a death trap. They're stopped. We can take our time and engage the threat. 50 is the only thing that's in our bag of tricks, we'll say, as snipers, to give us that capability. And I know guys are going to watch this and say, no, man, I've shot vehicles with 338 and stuff. I'm like, yeah, but how fast are they moving? What were the angles? What type of vehicle was it? What was the ammunition you were shooting? Your percentages of having a successful demobilization shot on a vehicle with a 50 is a hell of a lot higher than what it's going to be for 338.
Well, Rob, I really appreciate you spending this time with me. It's been really great to catch up. Glad business is going well for you. Maybe when I get a little bit closer on the 50 cal, we can get together and I might let you do some evaluation for me, maybe some testing, get some rounds down range with it. That'd be awesome.
Sounds good, Kelly. We take care and keep fighting the fight down there, and we really appreciate all your work you're doing up here.
Hi, I'm Regina Milkovich. Welcome to ELRHQ.com Champion Tips. I shoot in the Precision Rifle Series and National Rifle League circuits. I'm the reigning top female, have been since the beginning of both series, and I am the only female to win an overall championship in a nationally ranked match. I'm here to talk to you today about Timney triggers and why I chose them as my trigger. Of course, the foundation of every good rifle platform is the stock. I use McMillan's. This is a KMW brand based on a McMillan platform, but I'm here to talk to you about triggers. I use the Timney Calvin Elite trigger. They vary in pull weight anywhere from 8 ounces up to 1.5 pounds. My personal preference is 12 ounces, kind of the best of both worlds. Timney makes Calvin Elites in both a curved trigger, like this one, and a flat trigger, like the one I have in my rifle. Timney triggers are easy to adjust. Once they're set at the pull weight that you'd like, they never drift from that. In precision rifle shooting, we shoot in many different conditions, including rain, dust, wind. I have the confidence with these triggers that they're going to keep that same pull weight no matter what kind of dirt or water I dump into my action. And we all know that consistency and repetition is the key to being a champion. You can find Timney triggers and more at ELRHQ.com, your one-stop shop for champion vetted gear.
We've got a real treat. We're going to be talking with Bob Beck and Extreme Outer Limits. Just a really great facility here to be able to do a lot of things that we couldn't do as a radio show. And this kind of is going to be a simulcast as a radio show, and it's also going to go out on the Extreme Outer Limits podcast network as their podcast. And it's a way for us to kind of play with this new product, Zoom, and show everybody what we can do. And I think it's going to make it much more exciting for the viewers to be able to see different things other than just our mugs while we're talking back and forth. So I've got, as you can see on the screen, I've got some stocks. We're going to talk a little bit about that. That has to do with Extreme Outer Limits, and we're going to share that with him. I want to introduce Bob Beck. Those of you who have listened to our show know he's been on our show a couple of times, and I'm part of the Extreme Outer Limits podcast. So the viewers of Extreme Outer Limit podcast know who I am. So, Bob, why don't you come on and say hi and get us rolling for your side of it?
Well, thanks for having me again. If I'm not mistaken, I think, was I the first guest?
Absolutely. The very first guest.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up, but I was like, I don't know if that's for sure or not. But, hey, real quick, I do want to apologize. I have a slight camera issue over here. But other than that, I mean, this is your show, your program, and I got to say I do like it. It's you've evolved a lot with your Taking Stock show, and the equipment that you have that you're putting me on from Arizona to Oregon looks really good. I like the definition. I could actually even tell from looking at the stocks on the table that the first two are some of ours. That's before, when we were doing these podcasts or radio show, everything was so blurred I couldn't even hardly tell what it was. So that's some good equipment you guys got.
Well, it's not the equipment as much as it is the Zoom product. It's like a GoToMeeting, which gives us the ability to have as many guests on at the same time as we want. You see 4 windows here, but it could just as easily be 6. But what it does is allow us to go back and forth with other guests if we have, or a video camera, which we have set up in one window so that we can talk about these stocks. And it's one of the things that you and I are going to get into in a little bit. But it just gives us an ability to be a better product for the people who want to watch our video podcast. I just never could understand why people would want to watch a podcast where a guy was just sitting talking to the screen, or 2 people were talking, via Skype. This just gives us a much broader ability to do things that are going to be exciting for people to watch. I think more people will come in and watch. So,
what I like about where we're going with these podcasts and radio shows, especially the visual ones, is that we can really demonstrate the product or explain the product or even showcase a product that you just don't necessarily have time for when you're running about 22 and a half minutes of content in an episode. So this is really cool.
Because we have the control of this, and we're just demonstrating it to you, we can do some things that you can't. But once you set Zoom up on at your facility, you could say, for instance, this window that has the stocks in it, you could run that same window and you could put clips of your TV show in there. If there was something that you wanted to talk about, you could take a video clip, put it on a thumb drive, and set it up to view on that window. And Zev can talk more about that.
So basically, in a few minutes, Kelly will get up and he'll talk about the stocks, and we'll be able to use that green screen in the background to chroma key whatever we want in there. So I've got some great footage that Bob sent me of Kelly going on a hunt with some elk with the famous branch bite on his eye. It was not a scope bite, it was a branch bite. And Kelly persevered and brought down a beautiful elk. What was that, 780 yards or so? Yep. So yeah, we can superimpose anything, and I'm really excited. So this is a new technology Kelly has given me carte blanche to move ahead with, and it's been working out well.
One of the things that we did, simply because we thought, well, it'd be nice to have a green screen, I just went to the paint store, got the green screen color, and painted the wall. So now that wall is a green screen. So anytime we do anything, it looks fine green. But if we want to put something on the background to do, we can.
I'm just, my brain never stops, right? I'm always trying to think forward. I'm listening to you and Zev, and what's going through my mind is a little, I don't know if it's an untold secret or not, but when I run, I guess we'll just let it out of the bag. When we run this as a podcast, I think there's a vast amount of the world that doesn't know that television shows or outdoor television shows, I think they have the idea that we get paid to be on TV. And that's completely false, right? We get sponsors or partners, and those sponsors and partners are the ones chipping in against the airtime bill and the hunt costs and tires and fuel and tags and all the stuff that it takes to make a TV show. And it's so hard to communicate a message that is beyond the scenes, so to speak, of a TV show, about how it actually works. This platform here, I think, is going to help all of us, because the reality is, as much as it might sound awkward to say, the only way we can keep this big advertisement vehicle rolling down the road is by creating and selling good quality products. And when you're trying to keep a 22-minute episode entertaining, you don't necessarily want to conk your viewer over the head with a bunch of information. By the way, buy this. By the way, buy that. Or by the way, did you see this? You want to take them on the hunt and make them feel like they're engaging into your show and into your program, and not becoming a fan because I need my ego pumped for being a host. I could care less about that. But to try to become great clients in the long run. And that is so hard to describe or to say in a television program, but to be able to go to the podcast or go to your radio show with a format like this, where we can take and actually, like you have stocks on the table and say, hey, this is what McMillan Stocks is doing right now. This is our new releases. This is, all the technical specs of it. And then, maybe lead into where we're going in the future. That is invaluable to be able to get that message out there, because we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes or anything like that. We're just trying to communicate a message.
And it's so easy, Bob, that we can actually send a webcam to a panelist we want to have on, or to a factory we'd like to show, or a venue we'd like to show. And within 10 minutes, Joe was really quick on it and easy to set it up. We can get anybody to do it, and we've done that with a couple folks. We didn't ship them a camera, but they had one, and that's been working out.
I was glad you brought that up, because that's something I've never talked about. People think I'm getting paid to do this. Well, if I could get paid to do this, it'd be a lot more fun.
I think, we talked a little bit about this yesterday when we were just on our cell phones, but what you're saying matches up. It kind of reinforces where I'm wanting to go. So I love these things because I get to let cats out of the bag all the time that I don't get to do on TV. But we are doing a new site called Hunt Long Range. And, there will always be naysayers in everything that you do, because they always think that you're just out to make the buck. But the reality is, we're just trying to run a good quality business and have good quality product. But what the purpose of the site's going to be is, as Extreme Outer Limits is building in its premier hunts. That's kind of a division of our company, whether it's the camps we own or what we're doing. And we're getting clients involved in our hunts. What we're going to try to do with Hunt Long Range is we're going to brand it as a site that you come to, whether it be premium mule deer, premium elk, there'll be some bear, some moose, some other items on there to hunt. And then we'll be able to, for the guys looking for finer products, we're going to actually create video content and maybe run live streams like this with, whether it be you when there's stock questions, or maybe it's, benchmark if it's barrels, or Jewel if it's triggers, or whatever, right? But we can get that content in place. So when a guy is, we're going to kind of run it from the hunt starting first, because that's, again, like I said, it's kind of a little saying, brings everybody to the party, right? Everybody wants to go hunting. What do you want to hunt? Okay, we want to hunt elk. You want to hunt mule deer? Okay, well, you're going to click on that species, and then we're going to have a recommended gear list. And it's not recommended just because we threw gum at the wall. It's recommended because I've had extremely good success over a lot of years of doing this at a high intensity level, right? We do so many hunts per year to film so many TV shows, which means we're harvesting way more than average, quantity of animals for the guy that has, a normal day-to-day job. So these are vetted, as you say. This is a vetted gear list. So maybe we could say mule deer equates to this rifle, equates to this optic, equates to this ammo with this bullet. We could even get it down to pack choices, sport optics choices, boot options, all those things. And like you said, we're not trying to, kill it in the retail world. We're just trying to make a fair markup at a fair value to run a fair business and be able to provide a customer with exactly what they need on their hunt. Because after they book the hunt, you'd be surprised how many emails you get, because everybody starts to either second guess what they do have, or maybe it's time to upgrade, or maybe their boots are wore out, whatever it is. They need to get some gear because they're preparing for that hunt and they've got all summer to do it. So I'm totally on board. It sounds like we're coming at this from two directions, right? You're coming in on the extreme long range, or extreme long range shooting side, and I'm coming in on the hunting side. But I think we're trying to achieve the same goal.
You know, the really cool thing about you, Bob, and I noticed this right off when we first met, you think about things very similarly to the way I think about them. And I really liked what you said. And people, they'll say, yeah, they're just saying this. They're on a podcast, and they want people to think what they want them to think, so that they're trying to form their opinion. But the fact is you and I run our businesses very similar. We want to provide a very good product and a very good service. And the money will come. No getting around it. If we can't be successful, we won't stay in business very long. But if we put out the very best product that we can and provide the very best service, and you go even a couple of steps further by thinking outside the box and bringing in outfitters, and you've invested in outfitting simply to be able to give your customers that total experience. You went out and started putting on schools, and it started out a couple 1 year, and it's blossomed to what, one every weekend for almost 3 months?
16.
Yeah, 16 classes. And that's how many people are really interested in learning how to shoot long range and learning from somebody who does it on a daily basis. So I love you for that. That's one of the reasons why I consider you a good friend, because I love the way you think. And we seem to have a lot in common when it comes to how we want to run our business and how we want our customers to think of us.
Well, I appreciate the good word. And obviously, you know that you probably had a little bit to do. I mean, you've kind of been a mentor since back before 2010 when this all started. But no, I do appreciate it. You know, I think I just regard it as, I've always kind of joked and said, you know, I might hit my head on the wall once, and I might hit it on the wall twice, but I'm not going to do it the third time. And what I mean by that is, I try to stay focused and really hone in on the things that work and what doesn't work. And I try to always put myself in the other shoes. If I was on your side of the fence, what would I want? And I try to never lose track of the roots of how the business even continues to go, right? It's all based on the customer. It's all based on the service. I say it all the time at the trade shows. Guys come up and say, well, why you and not somebody else? And the honest answer is, hey, man, there's hundreds of guys across the country that can build you a half-minute gun. But how many of them can provide the service that we can, right? This is, like you say, vetted. This is vetted experience over multiples and multiples of success cases, because I do not deviate from what works. I'm not willing to hit my head on the wall the third time. It's just how we go about the shooting schools. I have refined a way that I could bring in any amount of people that may have, upper level experience to absolutely a novice. And by the end of the 2 days in that school, I will have everybody on that line hitting at a mile, because I have determined over time the exact steps and processes which every human body can go through to achieve a result. And if I don't ever deviate from that, no matter whether the ground is awkward or it's sloped or it's declined or inclined or there's a rock or whatever it is, if you stay to those fundamentals, you can produce first shot kills on game. So we teach it at the school and we let it roll into the field.
Having been at your class, I will testify to the fact that there are many people, every class you have, that have been to the class before. So that gives you an idea of not only how much value they think it is, because it costs money and it's not free. And so if they want to come back every year, they must feel that there's value in it. And the second point is, if it weren't enjoyable for them, even if they were learning something, they wouldn't come back time and time again to increase their skill level. So that's a great testament to the fact that you put together a great class that really works and that's fun too, and that the guys enjoy, and that's really cool. That's something that there isn't a lot of classes out there that can say that. I've heard people come back from all different kinds of classes, from some of the best teachers there are, that said, man, that was a grind. You know, I learned a lot, but man, it was really tough. Well, you can get that guy once. You
Right.
Probably can't get him 2 or 3 times.
We didn't publish it all on our website or our web store this year that we did advanced schools. I think it's something that we'll publish next year. And the reason that we didn't do that is we gave basically exclusive invites to our previous level 1. We kind of made it a criteria. If you had achieved level 1, you were going to get an email invite to level 2. And luckily we had enough following that we were able to fill all of the spots for our advanced, what we call level 2. I think to some of the students that have been to other schools, and they say, man, your level 1 school is really about like a level 2, level 3, but you approach it in a way that you bring me from the bottom and get me to the top in a way that they don't feel so overwhelmed.
Really enjoying my conversation with Bob Beck of Extreme Outer Limits, MOA Rifles, Rugged Ridge Gear, and now you've got a few Star Valley Outfitters. Name the others.
So we got Sheep Mountain Outfitters, and we're working on one in Idaho right now that I'm going to leave undisclosed for the moment. But Star Valley Outfitters in Wyoming and Sheep Mountain Outfitters in Oregon. And
the name of the yet-to-come website that you're working on?
Hunt Long Range.
Okay. Well, you see, this guy is a true entrepreneur. He wasn't satisfied with doing a television show. I was surprised when you came in from the construction business and basically as a contractor or a developer. I thought, what's this guy know about guns? What's he know? I've been hunting all my life. Well, you know how many times I've heard that, and what that means is a guy walks around once a year, walks around the field, tries to kill something, and he considers himself a hunter. Boy, was I wrong. You really had your stuff together, but you've really worked hard to put together the first full circle package for your customers, and I think that's really cool. But what we do here is we do nothing but fiberglass gun stocks, and we try to be the best we can. And we also try to come up with new stuff every year so that customers feel fresh when they look at our website and they say, hey, I got some really cool stuff out there, but I wanted to stock a rifle and I'm looking for something new. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my headset off. I'm going to leave the camera for a minute. Bob, you talk about what's new with MOA rifles and where this is going. It'll give me a chance to get the headset on and get behind the stocks, and then we can talk a little bit more from there.
Okay, sounds good. So where I'm at right now is, the market is growing and growing with the carbon barrel offerings. So carbon fiber is just kind of making its way into the industry altogether, and we've been in support of it because of our Rugged Ridge outdoor gear Extreme Pod has some carbon fiber qualities to it as well. So for years, we'd used either the fiberglass or the edge technology McMillan stocks, and then Kelly's got a new process that he'll be releasing too. But as we've grown into adapting carbon into our offerings, we had to get involved on some of your carbon offerings as well. So I do know from the clarity of this camera gear, I can see the first two are actually spec stocks for MOA rifles. Is that correct, Kelly?
Yeah, Bob, you're absolutely right. The first two of these stocks are MOA Rifles stocks. And the reason that I picked them is because they show really clearly what our new carbon fiber stocks with the different camouflage look like. And now this is the Arctic, molded in Arctic Carbon Ambush. That means that the carbon fiber actually shows through the gel coat and in spots where it's black, and then we've also put the tan and the white to kind of show the Arctic type of finish. And this here is the standard carbon ambush. So this is carbon fiber underneath. You can see the carbon fiber through, and it has touches of gray on it. It makes a really nice looking camouflage. And both of these are game hunters, which you're using on one of the lines of rifles. Which line is that?
So we have our Extreme Carbon, which uses the game hunter, and then we'd actually had an ultralight steel barreled rifle called our Summit. And one of the unique things I got to just take a second to plug is we work with Benchmark on all of our barrels, and they've been able to contour a carbon barrel down to what would be equivalent to a number 5. And because of that, with that McMillan Hunter Arctic Ambush stock you have there, we are able to run same profile and even a slightly lighter rifle that we call the Carbon Summit.
And what's that weigh?
Oh, rifle only, depending on the caliber, right? So you got to understand the size of the bore can sometimes adjust the weight of the rifle, but we can get down to around 5 pounds, 12 ounces to about 6 pounds. And the cool thing is we're running a titanium muzzle brake on it, so it's extremely light, and we're not needing to cut down the barrel and lose performance to get that weight. That's actually with a 26 or a 27-inch barrel, so you're still getting complete Magnum performance.
You know, that's great. And there's been some big advancements in carbon fiber wrapped barrels. When they first came out, you know, when I was building rifles, I couldn't find any that would shoot up to my expectations, so we didn't put them on rifles. But they've made some really big advancements in the last couple of years, and there are some carbon fiber barrels out there that shoot really well.
I think consistency was the biggest concern there for a while, and I think like anything, right there, they've gotten much better at the process.
Yeah. Now, I just wanted to show a couple of other patterns for our viewers, and this is just our standard woodland carbon ambush. This is one of the most popular that we make. Black, tan, and green, beautiful. I mean, you know, Zev was drooling over this a little while before. This is our A thumb hole because it's got the A3 forend. I'm not a big thumb hole fan, but some people like them, and we sell a bunch of them. And this one here is basically, we kind of stole this from the Alpine Cryptic new Alpine gear, and I was wearing it at Star Valley when I was up there. You saw the pattern that it was. This is really cool. It's got kind of some lime green in it, black and gray, so it really fits really well. So this is our Alpine Ambush, and really, really cool. If I were going to put a new stock on my rifle, I'd put this one on it, and I'd get all duded up in my Cryptek Ambush camo gear, and I'd be set to go. I like to plug all the partners, all the guys that have come on my show and shared about their product. Cryptek is one of them, and they've been real good to us, so I always like to give them a plug any chance I get. So that's what we've got here at the table. I'm going to go back to the desk and sit down, and we'll finish our conversation from there.
Before you go, are one of those the new injection molded stocks?
No, I didn't grab one of those, but that we can talk about that.
Okay.
Let me sit down.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't grab one of those to have in here, but we've shown it on several of our radio and podcasts, so it just didn't occur to me. But yeah, we're not quite into production yet. When I decided to do the injection molded plastic stock, I knew I had to do it different, and that meant that I had to come up with a different process. So I had this brainstorm about how we could do it and make it better and make it different. But boy, did I not understand how much more difficult it was going to be to make it that way. And we're struggling with one particular part of the process. We're struggling to try to figure out how to fix this one issue. And when that happens, we're going to start selling the heck out of them because we've got lots of people waiting for them. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Black Rifle Coffee Company. We've been having different people on our show for quite a while. I had Evan Haffer on, great guy, entrepreneur like you, was in the military, started, tasting coffee almost all around the world. In whatever reason, he decided that when he got out of the military that he was going to start roasting his own coffee and selling coffee, and they've done a hell of a job. They sent me a bunch to sample to figure out which I like, and it's really good stuff. So I wanted to give them another plug for being on the show. And, I've got my little Black Rifle coffee cup here. It doesn't have coffee in it. It's got Monster. I'm still trying to get my Monster sponsorship. These guys would be a big one to get. So.
All right. Fair enough. So what else is new and on the horizon?
We've got a couple of new products out. One of the things that you might be interested in, obviously, we talked about maybe you shooting King of 2 Mile under the McMillan brand, and unfortunately, it happens over 4th of July this year, which you reserve for family time, and I appreciate that, and I totally understand. Maybe the next year we'll get you out to a match or two shooting. I know how you can shoot, and I know that shooting a 230 grain 300 Ultra bullet, you have to know everything that you have to know to shoot a 400 grain 375 or whatever. It's all about being able to get the gun to go off when you want it to, know where the bullet's going to be at the range that you want it to be, and how to determine all those things. So I'd like to have people see how good a shooter you really are, because I think it's important to know that just because you're shooting at an animal doesn't mean, as a matter of fact, I think you're probably better than a lot of those guys, because they're laying on a flat surface that's pretty much even, and they can put their bipod, and they got plenty of time to get it set up. And you improvise on everything that you do and can still come up with the shot that works. And that's what's incredible.
I mean, sometimes, admittedly, right, sometimes it doesn't go the way you want, and you got to navigate through that, and you got to hold your composure and just get that second round off or whatever it may be. But that is the one thing about doing what we do. You've got to be pretty flexible, right? You can't have your mind completely set in one direction, that this is how I'm going to take the shot, or that's where I'm going to set up, or that's the rock I'm going to lean over, whatever. Because, animals move, they're feeding, they're walking, or maybe they're bedded, or maybe just the angle's not right, or whatever it is. You got to be pretty flexible. And when the opportunity comes, it might come right then. That's all the time you got. And then on top of that, you've got to be constantly forward thinking with the animal of, is he going to be where I'm going to place that bullet through the time of flight, that kind of thing. And so it doesn't always go perfect, but you got to roll on the fly.
Bob, I've really enjoyed our conversation. We talked about a lot of stuff. It seems like we've left a lot of things out, but that's always good when you do a regular podcast. So we've got something to talk about the next time we get together. I know you've got a lot of big things going on. This is about the season where you start your shooting classes, so that's going to be real important for you. And then you get a little break before you start hunting again. So maybe sometime this summer we can get away, get down to Cabo and do some fishing.
I would love that. I would. It's definitely coming in the spring. It's going to get busy. And I am fortunate, like the old days in construction, we always worked like crazy in the summer. That is a little bit of time I get to do some of the other things that are not work related. So anytime I can sneak out, you got something going, let me know. Okay.
I'll let you know. Okay, Bob, I know the hour's getting a little bit late, so I'm going to let you close.
Okay, Kelly. Well, I appreciate you having me back on Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. And for all you Extreme Outer Limits podcast listeners, we'll get this cut down and get it up here shortly. So we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, Bob. Enjoyed being with you.